Welcome to Knowing Him. This is Steve Danielson.
And this is Angie Danielson.
Join us each week as we explore the hymns of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and share our feelings, insights, and reflections about how each one brings us closer to Jesus Christ.
Enjoy your favorites and find some undiscovered gems in our journey to knowing Him.
Welcome to another episode of Knowing Him. I'm your host, Steve Danielson, with my co-host, my angel-faced wife, Angie.
Hi.
You may not know this about Angie, but she was one of the first people I met when I went to Idaho for college. It was a couple days before school started. We met on the way to a dance, and I was immediately attracted to her angel face.
Thanks.
So, Angie, I'm using this phrase today because it's used in this week's hymn, number 97, Lead Kindly Light. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this hymn, so let's get to it.
Okay. So I wanted to start talking about the composer of the music and then the author of the text. So John Dykes is the composer of the music. I'm not sure if he has any other hymns in our hymn book. Do you know?
We can check real quick. I don't. One of them has some and one doesn't. Get to the right page. Yes. John Dykes has Lead Kindly Light and Jesus the Very Thought of Thee.
Oh, yeah,
He wrote
that's
the music
right.
for that as well.
I think I did read that. So he was born in 1823 in England, and he was pretty much a musical prodigy. He was playing the organ at church when he was just 10 years old, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I definitely could not have played organ at church at 10 years old. I think I was closer to about 20 when 22.
Yeah. He also played other instruments, piano, of course, violin, and horn. And he was the co-founder and president of Cambridge University Musical Society. He was ordained in the Church of England and was a precentor and choir director at Durham Cathedral.
What is a precentor? Did you find that out?
It was basically the choir director, but they're
Okay.
leading kind of the services with the songs in it.
Okay, similar to a cantor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was a vicar as well. And he was part of what was called the Oxford movement, which
I think we'll talk
John
about
Henry
that more.
Newman, was also a part of. We'll talk about that more with John Henry Newman, who wrote the text. So John Dykes composed 300 hymns and 28 for children. So a lot of these people we have discovered wrote a lot of hymns.
Well, at the time, there weren't as many hymns in hymn books as there were today. It's sort of like how I approach my school choirs or things. Like if I have a need for a particular song, like I can't always necessarily find exactly what I'm looking for, so I'll just write something new. And that was, I think, part of their position was to create new music as well. So they were writing a lot.
So I just had a thought. Back in those days, a lot of hymn books were written without the music, just the words. So, were they just composing tunes that could be used for any hymn or a hymn that would fit?
Yeah, I think sometimes they would get a text and set a hymn to that, or there would be a pre-existing hymn text, and they'd create a new tune to that. With Lead Kindly Light, it said John Dykes specifically wrote this music for the words Lead Kindly Light. And actually in my research, I couldn't find that tune with any other words, which is unusual.
Yeah.
I did find the words Lead Kindly Light to some other tunes, but I did not find
That
the tune
tune.
with any other words.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if they often wrote, like you said, they wrote the hymns for, he was a choir director at the cathedral, so he wrote it for his choir.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, he was either writing it for his choir or for his congregation and saying, here's a new tune we can use for the set of words. Maybe the tune that they had written down saying, use it for this tune. Everyone's like, I don't know that tune. So it's like, okay, I'll write something new that'll go with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Interesting.
I did think it was interesting in in this book by Karen Davidson that we often refer to, it did say that John Dykes decided to turn to church music after he heard Jenny Lind sing Mendelssohn's Elijah. He was so moved by it, he decided to dedicate his life to it. Jenny Lind is, of course, the Swedish Nightingale, very famous opera singer, brought to America by P.T. Barnum. If you watch The Greatest Showman, you'll see her show up a little bit in there.
Well, that's not completely accurate about her life.
No, I mean, the entire movie is not completely accurate, but that's a place you can see something about Jenny Lind, but involved in this story as well.
Interesting. So he actually died pretty young. He died at age 53, and it's said, what I was reading was that he died from all the stress of the controversy with his bishop. So I guess he was a vicar, and the bishop over his church was not happy about the whole Oxford movement and everything. And because of the stress of that, and because he was part of that, the bishop wasn't sending him any help for his parish. So he was running it all by himself. And it was so stressful that he died from that.
Wow.
So it was really sad.
Yeah.
At the young age of 53. So
I hope his bishop felt guilty about that. All right. Well, speaking of the Oxford movement, let's turn to our lyricist,
John Henry Newman.
Now, John Henry Newman, I think this is a first for our podcast. Saint John Henry Newman, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's actually been sainted by the Catholic Church just as recently as 2019 is when the canonization happened. So this is sort of new information for some of you. So tell us about John Henry Newman. Where did he start out?
Well, he was born in 1801 in London, England, and he had a lot of adversity in his early life. Like his father ran a bank, and the bank shut down because of a financial collapse during the Napoleonic Wars. He went to college, and he must have suffered from anxiety, because it said that he had so much anxiety and nervousness that he couldn't complete his exams. And so he graduated with third-class honors, is what it said. So I guess he did not do well on the final exams. Yeah. And then his sister tragically passed away, and he was just he really had a hard life, it sounded like. But he became an Anglican minister, so the Church of England and the Anglican Church are the same thing. Mm-hmm. And he was also part of the Oxford movement. So do you want to kind of talk about that? Do you know? Did you?
So if I understand correctly, the Oxford movement, this was a new concept for me. I had to sort of look up what this was. But basically, this was people in the Anglican Church who felt that some ordinances and practices from the Catholic Church should be brought back into the Anglican Church.
Yeah,
so
reinstated.
Post-Reformation, the church broke off, the Anglican Church, and these people were saying some of these sacraments and things, these should be reinstated in what we're doing as well. Not necessarily saying we need to create a new church or we need to break off, just saying there needs to be some reform in the things that we're doing.
I noticed that some of the things the Oxford movement wanted were more flowery things. Like they wanted more colorful robes and different things like that, and more of a show type of thing. And the Anglican Church was like, no, we don't want that. You know, so it was kind of.
I don't know if they were looking at the Catholic Church and were impressed with those things and said, we want those things as well. I don't know exactly how it started.
Oh, I think incense might have been another one. They wanted to bring the incense back. Yeah. But it sounds like a lot of people in the Anglican Church didn't like him for that and saw him as a traitor. And so he eventually went and joined the Catholic Church. So,
he recanted all the bad things he had said about the Roman Catholic Church, which did not put him in good graces with the Anglican Church.
No.
And so eventually he left the church and decided to become a Catholic and was very quickly ordained a priest in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, it even said he became a cardinal.
Yeah, eventually became a cardinal. Mm-hmm. So very high up in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. A very elite group of cardinals, second to the Pope. So he's very, excuse me, very well respected in the Catholic Church. It sounds like his hymn work, his hymnody, if you will, was a very small portion of his life work.
Yeah.
He did a lot of great things with the Catholic Church, involved in many great causes. But let's talk about...
Oh, before we talk about
sorry.
the hymn, I wanted to say that I found out when I was studying about him that there's a university in Wichita, Kansas named after him.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, it's a Catholic university. It's called Newman University. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we actually have some relatives in Wichita. So if you're listening, go check out Newman University.
That's right.
So let's go back to the story of how and why he wrote Lead Kindly Light.
Okay, so, I mean, I found all sorts of different sources for this story, and it's pretty well known. And it kind of reminded me of the story that we talked about with Grace Crowell with Because I Have Been Given Much. Like, because of her struggles, she wrote these beautiful poems.
Yeah.
And it was similar with John Henry Newman. So I wanted to actually read the story as it was told in a general conference talk for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in October 2000, in a talk that was called Lead Kindly Light by Virginia U. Jensen. So she says, as a young priest traveling in Italy in 1833, Englishman John Henry Newman encountered emotional and physical darkness when illness detained him there for several weeks. One of the other sources I found said that it was most likely gastric or typhoid fever, so it was pretty bad. And he pretty much thought he was going to die from it. He became deeply discouraged, and a nurse who saw his tears asked what troubled him. All he could reply was that he was sure God had work for him to do in England. Aching to return home, he finally found passage on a small boat. Not long after the ship set sail, thick fog descended and obscured the hazardous cliffs surrounding them. Trapped for a week in the damp gray darkness, the ship unable to travel forward or backward, Newman pled for his Savior's help as he penned the words we now know as the hymn, Lead Kindly Light. And I'm going to read the words. Lead kindly light amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step enough for me. I was not ever thus, nor prayed that thou shouldst lead me on. I loved to choose and see my path, but now lead thou me on. I loved the garish day, and spite of fears, pride ruled my will. Remember not past years. So long thy power hath blessed me, sure it still will lead me on, o'er moor and fen, o'er crag and torrent, till the night is gone. And with the morn those angel faces smile, which I have loved long since and lost a while. It was absolutely beautiful, and thinking about him on that, sick and on that boat and writing these words is powerful.
Yeah. I mean, you can feel it as he's, on the ship. He's sick. In the source I was reading, it says that they were surrounded by fog and actually be calmed for a week. So they weren't even moving anywhere as he's trying to get home. And he's just so ill. And, to have a light would be amazing in this fog. I'm sure it was dark and oppressive. And to have this light, lead kindly light amid the encircling gloom. I mean, we can think of it in a very spiritual term. We can think of the darkness in our trials and things like that. But he is literally surrounded by gloom.
Yeah.
So you can think of it in a very literal sense as well. The night is dark, and I am far from home. Lead thou me on.
I like what Sister Jensen continues to say in the talk. She says, this hymn echoes a truth our hearts confirm. Though trials may extinguish other sources of light, Christ will illuminate our path, keep our feet, and show us the way home. For as the Savior has promised, he that followeth me shall not walk in darkness. We can all find ourselves in places of darkness from time to time. We may wander into dark spiritual caverns when we make foolish choices, admit harmful influences into our lives, or turn away from the light of the gospel to embrace the world just a little longer. It may seem harmless at first, just a little exploring, that's all. Before we know it, we become separated from the light and left in darkness alone. Why do we remain in darkness when such rescuing light awaits us? Let us bask in the warm and illuminating light provided by the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let the Savior's kindly light lead us one step at a time. Let covenants and commandments keep us safe as we follow the gospel pathway to our heavenly home.
Yeah, I like that, one step at a time. That's at the end of the first verse. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step enough for me. It reminds me also of the talk from Boyd K. Packer, The Candle of the Lord, where he says sometimes the darkness is right there, and you have to step into the darkness in order to see the next step, and to see the next step after that. And so just one step at a time, sometimes that's all we get, and we have to put our faith in the Lord that he'll lead us on.
Yeah. I also really liked something else I found on a website called www.cardinaljohnhenrynewman.com. So there's a whole website dedicated to him. But the lady that wrote the article on there, Professor Barb H. Wyman, said this about the last verse. In this final, glorious, and triumphant last stanza, we see Newman's faith and hope vanquish the gloom. He throws his cares to Christ, remembering that ever has he been blessed. And though he knows there might still be rough spots in the path ahead, crags and torrents, nevertheless the night is gone. And the heart's thrill of hope in the reality of the heavenly homecoming at once gives meaning to all the homecomings, and the angel's smile serves to represent as well both earthly and heavenly consolation, which Newman recalls with renewed happiness, and though he lost sight for a time, his eyes are again surely and firmly gazing upward.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's actually a statement here by Karen Davidson in our favorite book here, Our Latter-day Hymns, that I actually sort of don't agree with, and I wanted to bring this up.
Okay.
So at the end of this entry about Lead Kindly Light, she says, Latter-day Saints should not be too quick to equate the angel faces of verse 3 with loved ones at the time of a heavenly reunion. Cardinal Newman more likely was referring to the joys and hopes that are with us in times of faith. And though I do agree that what she says Cardinal Newman was most likely thinking, I personally don't see any harm in thinking about angel faces
of our loved ones
of our loved ones in a time of heavenly reunion, because the thing that sort of irked me was saying you're not allowed to think of the poem this way. I feel that poetry and the text of these hymns speak to us personally. And sometimes we may get something different out of it than what the author originally intended. And I think that's okay sometimes.
And it might be different in different times of your life.
Yeah.
Like if you're struggling with something, the song might mean something different to you than in another time when you might be dealing with something else.
Yeah. I actually had a whole discussion about the Robert Frost poem, what is it called? The Path in the Woods, and I took the one less traveled.
I can't think of what it's called.
I think it might just be called the Path in the Woods. I don't remember. It's called something different. I'll look it up later and feel chagrined that I can't remember it now. But I had a whole conversation with someone because he was saying, oh no, Robert Frost meant it completely different from how everyone else interprets it. I'm like, well, if everyone else is interpreting it one way, then maybe this is a valid interpretation, even though Robert Frost himself may not have seen it this way. This can still be a valid interpretation.
Yeah.
So I think this is a valid interpretation, thinking that it angel faces of these people that we meet on the other side. Now, to be fair, I hadn't even thought of that interpretation until she wrote it in the book. So she
That's
sort of
funny.
put that interpretation in my mind.
Well, I liked it here in this quote that I just read, where it said, And the angel smiles serve to represent as well both earthly and heavenly consolation. So it could be people around us that help us, or heavenly, you know.
Yeah, and like you said, it depends on where we are in life and what our circumstances are. We could have different interpretations of what that actually means to us.
Yeah. So I picked this hymn because I've really liked it for a long time, and the time I remember this hymn really giving me a lot of strength and hope was when I was on my mission. And so, of course, we were singing it in Spanish. But I just, I don't know, I feel like there was a lot of really hard things that happened as a missionary, a lot of disappointment. Like, we were talking to our son that's on his mission recently, and he said, you know, like, for every, you know, how many people you talk to that will reject you, you'll get one. I don't know how many he said. I don't know the number.
I think he said for every one that is interested, there's 20 to 30 that aren't.
Yeah, that reject you. And so that can be really hard and discouraging as a missionary, you know, and you're so wanting people to have the light of the gospel, and a lot of people don't want to listen or give you the time of day, you know. And so this was a hymn that me and my companions would sing a lot, and it gave us a lot of hope. Like Christ's light was with us even when it felt like we were in darkness sometimes because of the discouragement.
Well, I just had a couple other things to say about the hymn. Just sort of trivia sort of stuff. Not trivia, but sort of things about the hymn itself rather than about the composer or whatnot. I just wanted to say, first of all, I think the first time we see it in our LDS hymn book is in the 1948 edition. So the 1948 hymn book went through a couple revisions. And in this printing from 1950, Lead Kindly Light is actually also hymn 97, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, they don't always line up.
Yeah. In the later printing, sort of the brown hymn book that many of you may remember, it's hymn 112, so it lost its number 97 spot.
Well, in Spanish, it's 48, so.
Okay. But then in 1985, it was put back in 97. One thing that makes this hymn unique is the time signature, the musical meter. So we've talked about poetic meter and how you can sort of interchange text sometimes. The thing that makes this interesting is that it's in 3/2. We don't get a lot of hymns in 3/2.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So, you know, in musical terms, that means that there are 3 beats per measure and the half note is getting the beat, which is something we don't see a lot in our hymns. There are a couple others that are in a cut meter as this is, but we don't see it very often. And in some editions I've seen, you end up with whole notes together, like soprano and alto hold the same note on a whole note. And like in the 1948 Brown edition, those whole notes overlap and they look weird. And so there's some weird layout things that happen in 3/2. It's also I wouldn't say a nightmare, but it's one of those ones that beginning conductors look at and like, I don't even know what to do with this.
Is it 3/2 in all of the hymn?
Yeah, it's 3/2. That's the way that John Dykes wrote it. And like I said, he wrote it for this tune. So anytime you see Lead Kindly Light with John Dykes' tune, it's going to be in 3/2. I did mention though that I did find the words with other tunes, and I do want to share one of those with you.
Well, I was just going to say real quick, I found that poem by Robert Frost. It's called The Road Not Taken.
The Road Not Taken. Oh. I knew it. Anyway, so this tune was written by Charles Henry Purday, and I don't know any information about him, but I'm just going to sing this little melody for you. Lead kindly light. Hold on. I'm going to start that again. Bum, bum, bum. Lead kindly light amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark, and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet, I do not ask to see the distant scene, one step enough for me.
I'll stick with the one we have.
Yeah.
I like that.
Anyway, so
better.
this one is in 4/4, but just sort of shows you how the poetic meter can be put in different musical meters. So this one doesn't have to be in 3/2, but it can fit the same sort of idea.
Interesting.
Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was interesting. So, anything else you want to share about this hymn?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I think we are ready to sing it. Let me get back to the right tune from John Dykes here.
Nope.
Yeah, let's get an E flat.
It's in D here.
Oh, I'm looking at the 1948 and there was an E flat, so I will go back to a D. Okay. Lead kindly light amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene, one step enough for me. I was not ever thus, nor prayed that thou shouldst lead me on. I love to choose and see my path, but now lead thou me on. I love thy garish day and spite of fears. Pride ruled my will, remember not past years. So long thy power hath blessed me, sure it still will lead me on, o'er moor and fen, o'er crag and torrent, till the night is gone, and with the morn those angel faces smile, which I have loved long since and lost a while. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today as we discussed the hymn Lead Kindly Light. As always, it's a joy to be with you and to discuss the hymns. If you'd like to connect with us, please email us at knowinghim@gmail.com or join our Facebook group. We'd love to hear what you think about the podcast and about the hymns. In the meantime, I hope you'll join us next week as we sing our way to knowing Him.